Coach Church came here from Highland High School 2 years prior to when I joined his staff in 1975. But he had a dream and a commitment to Santa Fe and to the student body and to the town itself that he would turn the program around. I was a ninth grade coach at the time, and Coach Whittemore and I were in charge of the ninth grade program. We had a blue team and a gold team at the time, which was at mid-high. And Coach Church recognized our potential and asked Coach Whittemore and myself to become part of the varsity staff. And our main goal and only goal was to educate and teach the younger kids in the junior high and the ninth grade program and the junior varsity program to do exactly what Coach Church wanted them to learn, and that was how to be a Demon football player.
Back to pass, looks, you got a man, 45-50, look out. That is Randy Bertram, he's going to go all the way, 25-20, he is gone. Randy Bertram on a look-in pass, goes the distance. Eldorado. There's Steve Baca, rolls, has a lot of room, 30-25, look out, inside the 20, still going at the 50.
In 1979, the Santa Fe High football team won the state championship game. They had made it to the pinnacle of high school football. On that December day, a group of boys in Santa Fe watching hoped they would get the opportunity to represent the city and become a Santa Fe High Demon.
I knew it was going to be a special team for a number of reasons. Number one, it was the first year that when Coach Church was there, they had a blue and a gold freshman team. They had two separate freshman teams. Well, probably because of economics, they kept it as one team. So I knew all the talent was going to be on one team. And I had heard that the junior highs were pretty good, Capshaw, Alameda, and DeVargas. So I knew we were going to get all the talent. And it was a special team. They had great attitudes. They worked hard. They did everything that we asked of them. And you just knew that if they stuck together, which they did for the most part, of course, and they were going to be something special when they got older.
The Capshaw, DeVargas, Alameda melting pot coming together at the high school in '83 we all knew was going to be a potentially special time for all of us, and it was.
Freshman year is when, we all kind of came together. You had Max, Martine, Max, Craig, Gene, that were at Capshaw. I think Leo was at Alameda. And then we all, kind of came together and started that, freshman run with Coach Hawk.
Well, I was a little shocked at some of the size we had for a freshman team, especially, at linebacker and running back with Gene and Martine. Those are big kids. They were bigger than any varsity kid I had at Espanola the previous 3 years.
We started looking at watching that freshman team play, and they started having big crowds show up to watch them, and so you could see, it was obvious where the talent was and what those kids had.
We just had that hunger, and what was nice about that is a lot of times by halftime we already knew we were going to win the game, so I was able to play everybody and give everybody experience, and it keeps everybody happy, the players, the parents, of course.
Seeing the freshman team winning and seeing the struggles that the junior varsity and the varsity were going through, it kind of made us think about what we could do for the future. I believe it was Coach Moots' first year, so we knew the program was in kind of a changeover. So we were just thinking, what are we going to be able to do when we advance to sophomore, junior, and senior to improve the program?
Again, in growing a program, you want to do as much for it as you can. And so we would invite those kids to, unless they had another sport to go through, we'd tell them that if you have another sport to go to, that's fine, and you can go to it. But however, if you would like to stay on for the remainder of the school year or the season with us, you're welcome to do that too. And they chose to do that, so that showed us more dedication to what they really wanted to do and where their focus was.
And there's a quote that Kevin Hawk said, the varsity of the future was going to be loaded with talent.
So one night I was thinking, we played a game, and here they go out there and they're jumping and screaming and yelling and stuffing, and I'm thinking these guys are expelling a lot of energy, and so let's do something different. So I told them that from now on we're going to go out there and get your buddy, whoever you want to. We're going to go out there hand in hand, and then we're going to wait and we're going to keep that energy inside until the kickoff, and then we're going to unleash hell on them, and that's what we did.
The team had developed a nastiness they expressed in their hard-hitting physicality, a combination of a hatred of losing and a thirst for a rumble.
Well, I think of practice. There was one day, and going back to the '85 team, I was right out of college. I was fit. I was still quick. I was strong. I got in a tussle with Rudy Parga. Rudy Parga kicked my butt. I mean, these kids were strong. I mean, they were tough. They were mean. They were muscle. They had it all. I mean, these guys they're ready to play.
By 1985, the program had turned a corner. The team's perseverance and hard work had begun to bear fruit. They rolled through the regular season and were back in the playoffs. They surprised everyone by nearly upsetting the eventual state champion Clovis Wildcats.
84, 85, I know this documentary is about 86, but 86 would not have been what it was without 84 and 85. We all laid the groundwork together. They kind of gave us a little bit of hard time, us 6 sophomores at times, coming up, being young. But again, we went out and we proved ourselves. We proved that we belonged in that same league with those guys, even though they were older than us.
Coming off an '85 team that was loaded, the '86 team, in my mind, was also loaded. Of course, there was some rebuilding to do, but these kids, again, you look back at that program, it was probably one of toughest programs in the state of New Mexico. Summer program, the weightlifting program, you know, the things that these kids had to go through was just unbelievable.
85 was just a stacked team. And the summer going into the 86 team, why wouldn't it just continue? I mean, all the backfield was all there. The linemen who were coming up, they had all been with the program. So it was nothing but, we just experienced a lot of success.
There's a cliche that most people are defined what they do 8 to 5. In our case was these young men were defined what they do before 8 and definitely after 5. And back to the summer program, it was just a year-long commitment. It wasn't just those 2 hours in the weight room or conditioning or running. These kids, we were able to convince and get the message across that their lives, at least for right now, for this 1 year, the 86 year, it was about Demon football and Blue Thunder.
So the expectations was very, very high. You know, we felt as a coaching staff that these kids could go and do something, you know, make the playoffs, and who knows, make the state championship.
The Demons opened with a tough Valley Viking team. Even though they were favored at home, they barely escaped with a win. The next game was against rival Albuquerque High School. This time, the Demons were not so fortunate. They took their first loss and had to rally now against an undefeated Manzano team.
They came in unbeaten, 2-0 at that time. We were 1-1. I hadn't even played the week before, didn't even suit up because I had, I'm sure, a concussion, but back then we didn't know what the hell that was.
Manzano game, just a very, just a different game, different feel.
So I hadn't practiced for basically 2 weeks. Manzano came in and jumped all over us, 2-touchdown lead, I think.
That was one of those games where we really felt confident. We felt we were going to impose our will on them. And lo and behold, we're down, 20-something to 6 at halftime. And we're just wondering in the locker room, wait a minute, where did we go wrong? What happened? Where are the Demons? Where's the Blue Thunder?
Coach Moots has finally told me, he's like, you're going in, you're going in. And I had played on defense for that game, but they were already up. They had some, I don't know, their offense was very good that year. We went in, scored in like 4 plays, and we were back in the game, scored again. It was 14-12, back and forth, and that was a great game for us because we started off slow, we dug deep, the coaches were talking to us. I remember talking to Coach Tyner on the headset. He's like, you got to get these guys motivated. And I was like, yeah, because we're all seniors, if you don't do it now, you're not going to get another chance.
They believed in themselves. More importantly, they believed in each other. And nobody was looking around to see who was or wasn't doing their job. They were focused on what they had to do, and that was our goal with them too. All the coaches, you worry about what you can do, not about what's next to you. That'll all take care of itself. And they stepped up. And it was just an amazing thing to see.
I think every punt return that I actually had in high school, once I made those first couple of guys miss, I never got touched, which says something about the team concept that everybody is doing their job. Manzano, we were behind in the game by almost two touchdowns, and we needed something to happen. And I caught the punt, and it was just an open sideline. And I just hit the sideline, was running. Out of the corner of my eye, I just see, the punter be destroyed. And I ran into the end zone and kind of, turned around, and, he's still down, and it was Chris.
One of the things that all the coaches taught me, and specifically Coach Olivares is that when you're playing defense, there's going to be an opportunity for you to be the star. There's going to be a play where you're going to blitz. And I'm going to call it at a time when I know that they're going to run to your side, or the quarterback's going to fall back for a pass, and you're going to have a complete opening, and you're going to get a sack, and you'll be the celebrity. But that's not going to be every play. There's going to be opportunities where you're going to have to drill down so that the guy next to you can go get that star tackle or can make that big play. And that was sacrifice, and that was teamwork that they taught me that I had no idea what it was. There's nothing else in life outside of going to high school, a public high school, that teaches you that kind of stuff. You know, where you sacrifice yourself so that someone else can achieve something, and then together as teammates, you guys reach the goal.
And I mean, Chris was fearless on punts. I mean, I don't know how many times he almost blocked punts, going up in the air, head over heels, doing everything he could to get to, you know, the punter to block the punt before it got off. But you know, that's one of the returns that, like I say, that one will stick with me as long as I'm alive.
And once he scored, I mean, it was on. It wasn't going to, we didn't even look back. We decided to score.
They scored 21 points in the first half. They didn't score again. And I didn't finish the game, and at the end we ran the single wing. It was Gene who actually scored the final touchdown. But it was just the big picture here. We came from behind. We beat a ranked team at home. We knew we could do it, and that kind of got our season going in the right direction. I think we won 5 games in a row from that point.
Lozano probably overlooked us a little while, and then when they got up on us, and then all of a sudden they started getting hit, and it started to hurt, that sort of changed their attitude about the game.
Coach Moots, Coach Martinez, myself made some adjustments at halftime. I believe we shut them out the whole second half, and our offense put it in gear, and that's when we really understood that we could come down from 3 TDs down and still come out with a W, and that's exactly what we did.
The Manzano victory turned out to be a watershed moment. The team had coalesced now behind the comeback. The win was the start of a 5-game winning streak in which the team had developed a reputation for a hard-hitting defense, a rugged rushing attack, and relentless energy, built on a hill back home at Ivanhead Stadium.
It wasn't being used for anything, so I thought, well, why not? And so we started going up the hill, and I was right there beside them, and I hope they remember that.
First term I guess I would use would be old school, but that was just part of our conditioning program after practice, and even in the summers where we had a hill here on the other side of the baseball field where these young men, it was dirt, and again, you're talking about 2 hours of hard, intense football practice with pads on, and then they still had to climb this hill 6, 8, 10 times. And again, that's where you really look towards the inside. You know, greatness is from within, and these young men understood, even before our first W, that that's what it was going to take. How committed were they to themselves and to each other?
I never really minded the hill that much. I think, you know, it was something at the end of the practice, you know, that you dreaded doing, but the physical aspect of it itself, I think Chris said, you know, it's a mindset, you know, get it done, get it over with. I think the piggybacks on the hill were very tough. When the ground was dry, the hill was easy. But when you had just a little bit of mud, a little bit of moisture, then you're carrying an extra 10 or 15 pounds on your shoes and slipping and sliding up and down the hill.
An important factor in any team's success is their commitment and selfless dedication to each other outside the lines. Coach Moots had made a tradition by making the night before a game a team bonding opportunity.
Naively, I was thinking that Thursday nights my players were going home and getting a good night's sleep for Friday's game. And then I had some people come tell me that really wasn't happening. Danny Nauer's mother worked for I think the Baptist church or the Methodist church. And so I started just thinking about it. So I told the guys one day, I said, you know, there's a reason for the sun to come up and go down and for us to be here and to breathe this air. And I said, what I'm thinking about is just going to different churches here in town and just have them talk to us about everyday life, something, an event that you guys may have or may not know about.
I think that's something that, again, brought us together as a team. you know, because everybody, you know, different religions, you know, everybody has different beliefs. But when you can actually get together as a team and actually go and hear something about what another teammate's, you know, beliefs are, then it makes you feel easier towards them and better towards them, because, you know, it's one of those things that just brings you together.
We talk about, you know, every one of us young men had a life outside of football. For some of us, we came from broken homes. Some of us had, you know, I look up and I'd see, you know, Max Turner's family were always videotaping, and they seemed so tight. You know, my folks were divorced and whatnot, and, you know, there were rough times for a lot of us. Those Thursdays for me were a time where I felt a sense of a strong family.
Those kids just, they were there. And that was part of the discipline. That was part of them wanting to show that they were, you know, brothers, teammates.
It was an opportunity to expose us to the community. And I think Moots brought that. But it wasn't just Moots. It was collectively it had to have been a collective organization, that whole coaching staff. I mean, they passionately cared about us.
We knew Roswell was going to be a tough game. They came in ranked #1. I don't remember if we were 4 or 5 going into that game as far as ranking, but something about playing at home in Ivanhead Stadium, it just brought out the best in us. You know, we had fans. Our side of the stands were full, and everybody was screaming.
Coach Moots really did a good job that week trying to refocus these young men. This was not an overnight process. This was years in the making. And we understood that. We as coaches, as adults, understood that this was really might not come around a while.
Everything that we did was to benefit that team and to start expectations. I knew, and the coaches knew, that it was going to be a little bit of a long road. We were climbing a hill, and we had that hill to climb. And each year we got higher and higher and higher. When we got to the top, we were at the top.
And again, we had played them just the year before and got screwed. I'll say that right. I've got the video footage to show it. And all those 85 guys know.
Going into that game, that was our arch nemesis, right? They were the one team that, the only thing that stood in our way from a championship.
We knew about the reputation of the Roswell Coyotes and their tradition. Having said that, we knew about, you know, Coach Church and the '78 championship team. So we had some tradition in our back pocket, but we had to go out and make our own. This is a team and a new program, and if you will, a new era here in the mid-'80s.
When they came to town and it rained hard that night, it was really wet, so it was going to be a old-fashioned slugfest. And like I said, our coaches had already motivated and taught us for years to bring it. So we knew that those guys hadn't been hit like we were going to hit them, and I still to this day know that we pushed them around.
It was intense all week, and our kids really, and again, I talk about our second teamers and third teamers and our scout team. They did a tremendous job that week of getting our kids prepped.
For the last couple of years, we called ourselves Blue Thunder. That was our motto because of the way we hit. And you would hear these sounds coming out of our games, even out of our practices, of these cracks of helmets and shoulder pads coming together. It would make this crashing, thunderous sound. And while we would exercise, the coaches would walk around and chant things like, "Blue Thunder, baby, Blue Thunder." So that was us. And here we are in a game, right? How Shakespearean, that the weather changes and this thunder starts, and we start ripping them up.
The newspaper, you know, kind of put it in perspective. You know, the first half, you know, it was overcast, but when that third quarter, you know, rolled around, the skies opened up, the rain started falling, and Blue Thunder from the north struck.
Mickey Reeves was a D1, and we put our people on him, and he was taller than us. I don't think he was much faster, but a little bit, and we pushed him in the mouth.
And I mean, we owned the second half of that game. The last drive, going in for the touchdown. I had a few good runs in that drive. Almost lost the ball on a fumble when we were inside the 10-yard line, but recovered it.
There was a rollout pass that was going to the left. Max Turner was going to the left, and I was pulling. And I hit the end that was about to hit Max, and he throws the touchdown pass. Martin Gann running up the middle on the sidelines. That was huge.
Okay, we just have to hold one more defensive series, and we just beat the #1 team in the state. And people were flooding out of the stands when that final gun went off that game was over. It was an amazing feeling to beat the #1 team in the state.
It was then, even then, we had won the championship after we walked out of that game when we beat Roswell and Santa Fe. And the rest was just bring on the other people because no one can touch us now.
We knew we had the offense, we knew we had the defense. Coach Olivares had them prepared defensively. Offensively, this direction I think sort of messed with them. But other than that, it was back school football, old school football. We're gonna have some fun out there and go after them. And these kids, nobody different. You show up, you're gonna get what I got, and they gave it to them.
And they had expectations that very few teams in New Mexico were really going to be able to compete with them, and you better bring it, and we did.
So when we won the ranking the next week, we were ranked #2. And then that next Friday night, we played Farmington and kicked the hell out of them.
The Demons' momentum had carried them to near the top of the polls. They beat Farmington in convincing fashion, and finally, they had become the top-ranked team in the state.
And then that Saturday, Mayfield was ranked #1 and lost to Manzano, who we had beaten earlier. So that next week, we were ranked #1 before we played Del Norte.
One thing that the coaches told us is, no matter whatever happens in your life, this will be a moment that you always remember. That at one time, you played on the best football team in the state of New Mexico. Even though it was short-lived, 1 week, we achieved it, and that's something that nobody can ever take away from us.
Yeah, it was a reward for all the team camaraderie, the hard work, and that we were ranked #1, and no one could ever take that away from us.
Part of the success the team was experiencing was because the practices were more physical and intense than the games. This was due largely to the unheralded but essential scout team that pushed the team beyond their perceived limits with a punishing style of their own.
The true star on our team was the scout team. That was the true stars on our team. The scout team, they didn't get to play very much unless the game was out of control, but they showed up every day. And they practiced hard every day, and they gave the varsity all they could handle. And as a matter of fact, sort of getting off subject a little bit, but we used to give our kids stickers for their helmets. And I made it a point to give the scout team 3-4 times more stickers than I did the varsity. The varsity got sort of graded, not really, we didn't have a grading system at that time. But the scout team, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been as prepared as we were.
Pride. Every one of us had a pride. Every one of us had a need to be there. Again, a lot of that scout team, we hurt a lot of them. I remember broken arms. I remember hurt knees. I remember hurt ankles. They felt like they were still contributing. And they were.
Also, just those young men, second and third teamers, and non-starters, and even some of our stars. We had young men like Chris Ingram, who wasn't a superstar by any means, 6 foot, if that, maybe 5'10", maybe 140, 50-pound kid. But he believed in the program, he believed in us, and he believed in himself. And he's a young man that just was not going to be a superstar in any way, shape, manner, or form. But we need more Chris Ingrams. Any program will be more than happy to take on kids like Chris Ingram and others who just really gave it their all and weren't seeking any headlines or anything.
Earlier this week, the Santa Fe Demons took over the #1 ranking in Quad A high school football in New Mexico, and the Demons' rise from the top hasn't gone unnoticed in the state capital. Henry Tafoya reports. There is something very special taking place in the city of Santa Fe, and it's becoming the talk of the town. It's called Demon Football. The crowds are huge, and the spirit is wild. And it's not just another football team. It's the state's top-ranked football team, and the Demons are in state playoff groove. The spirit is a big part of attending a Demon game. The student body loves its team, and they also come to play.
Oh, it's so important because the football team really needs you to stand behind them and to really get them going, to motivate them in order to get all these victories. It brings excitement to the town, I think, because everybody reads it in the newspaper and everybody sees it on TV, and, you know, it brings a lot of excitement to the town.
The Demons are a well-balanced, exciting football team. They love to hit, and they've earned their way to the top. 2 weeks ago, they tumbled Roswell from the top ranking. Hoyt Moose, the Demon leader, has found the winning formula, which results in a 6-1 record. Friday night, the Demons will be in Albuquerque for a meeting with Del Norte.
Now they would surprise no one. They were now the biggest catch in the sea. Everyone was gunning for them. And they had experienced a setback at Del Norte.
A memory of mine was when we were playing Del Norte. We were ranked #1 in the state, and we drove the ball down to the 1 yard line and we couldn't score. It was amazing. I mean, we pushed, we pulled on that Del Norte team. I mean, that Del Norte team had a lot of tough athletes too. But what I do remember is right before half, Del Norte took the football 99 yards and drove it on us and scored. And we were just going into that locker room. We were just shocked. We were just like, how in the world did that happen? And I remember Coach Olivares walking in, and everybody's quiet. And the first thing, he just looks at everybody and he says, "How in the hell can Del Norte take the ball 99 yards and stuff it down our throats? That's unbelievable. That's not going to ever happen again." And we paid for it on Monday. That Monday. The defensive line paid for it, actually, mostly. We were running the hills when Lewis, Steve, Guzman, all those guys, they were pushing the sled nonstop and running the hills nonstop for the whole entire practice.
The Demons bounced back by dominating Los Alamos in the final regular season game.
Well, I know the first time we had played Albuquerque High earlier that year, I didn't even suit up because I had had the concussion from the game before. So I didn't even get to play against them. We lost 7-6 on some little fluke. They picked up a fumble and ran it in right at the end of the game. So, and then all through the week, the articles, there was from the New Mexican and stuff like that, predicting, you know, the Demons always have trouble with Albuquerque High School, and Albuquerque always plays the Demons tough down in Albuquerque on Milne on the turf, whatever. Now, I just remember being motivated myself because I hadn't even played against these guys. I was like, there is no way that we're losing to these clowns. They beat us on a fluke play, and we went down there and they scored like on the third play of the game. There's some amazing running back, big kid, and we didn't even have the ball yet. I remember after they scored and they were lining up to kick the extra point, Antonio Posa comes over to me again and he grabs me by the face mask. He's like, this is nothing. We got this game. And I was like, oh, of course, we got it. It didn't even phase our outlook on it at all.
The Demons answered quickly with a trick play that snagged momentum. The defense became a reckoning force that kept the Bulldogs from seeing the end zone again.
game as it wore on, we wore them down, and we made some big plays, and yeah, I mean, the final score could have been a lot worse.
The Demons had advanced to the semifinals. Waiting for them were their old nemesis, the Roswell Coyotes. This time, the game would be at the famed Wool Bowl, the home stadium for Roswell.
The Roswell game, semifinals. We're playing in the Wool Bowl. It was packed. It was packed, and Roswell came out ahead of us and were beating us in the first half.
It was very intense. It was on their home turf, and Coach Bradley, again, very successful veteran coach, and his staff, they did a nice job scheming us offensively and defensively. Sometimes when we were trying to come up with some new blitzes or a new pass or a new formation, they were prepared. And that's just part of coaching, and that it happens. We got them the first time, they got us the second time, and you just move on. A life lesson is that it just doesn't always work out the way you want it to be, but it's just the attitude, what you learn from that, and you take that forward in your own daily lives.
Unfortunate mistakes with these guys in the playoff hurt us. I can't think of any one specific play, but you get into the playoffs and you got to be flawless. And there were some things that hurt us, and it put an end to our journey.
We knew we were a better team than Roswell. We just didn't play like it that day. And you can look at that film, and I mean, we had dropped passes, we had just missed tackles. We just wasn't our day. They had the revenge factor going for them. I mean, you look in the state championship game, they got beat by a Highland team that wasn't really that good.
We were quiet, no one spoke. Driving back up to Santa Fe, everybody was just quiet. I think the seniors had realized that this was it. They're not gonna ever play together again. I felt that way too, because I got caught up in the middle that I was a senior, in fact. That's how sad it was.
The season and the football careers of the 86 seniors came to an end that day in November. They did not reach their ultimate goal of a championship, but through the rough practices, soaring victories, and bitter defeats, they had built something they would cherish perhaps more than a blue trophy, a brotherhood that would last a lifetime.
We had a competitiveness against each other, but we always lifted each other. There was not one star on the team. We played as a brotherhood. We played together. We supported each other. We backed each other up.
So one was a real Hispanic young man, and then the other one was a real Anglo-sized young man. And they were side by side, brother to brother, never flinching, helping each other, and race never played a part in the program at all. And ethnic background never played a work. Once you put on that uniform, you were a brother and protected the guy next to you.
They played hard for each other. They would back each other up. And the final point is, as Max said early in one of his interviews, he said they didn't only put a tackle on somebody, it was all 11 guys putting a tackle. That's brotherhood right there. I mean, you're helping out each other, you're striving to be the best with each other, and that's what these guys did.
Coach Moots retired from coaching after that season. 2 years later, the city's talent would be split by the opening of a new high school. The 1986 team was the last one to win a playoff game and be ranked number 1 in the state. The ghost of the 1986 football team still exists in and around Santa Fe High School, within the walls of Demon Alley. If you look closely, you can still picture the packed and raucous crowds that packed Ivanhead Stadium. You can hear the echoes of the 86 team's pads cracking during the legendary practices. The team may not be able to call themselves state champions, but to many, they were more than that. The memory of being a kid full of dreams and walking into Ivanhead with the drumbeat of the band, the buzz of the crowd, and clacking of cleats as the players walked to the stadium. They are memories for a town that rode with them on that wonderful journey in the fall of 1986. They are the tradition that we all hope to be part of. They are a brotherhood that we all cherish. They are Blue Thunder.
You know, when they were freshmen, and like I say, our first scrimmage of the year was against Berlin, and they handled us pretty good. And you know, I had coached with Hoyt Moots at Espanola Valley, and we hung around with the Santa Fe staff with Coach Church a lot. So I had heard a story that one year before they played St. Michael's, somebody from St. Michael's had sent a black bouquet of roses, and Coach Church had put it in the middle of the floor while he gave his talk, and then I guess they really fired up the demons, and apparently they went on to win the game. Well, one day just talking with my family and at my sister-in-law's for a barbecue that summer, I guess, I told them that story. Well, my sister-in-law, I guess, remembered it, and so before we played Berlin the last game of the year at home, we were there getting dressed, and all of a sudden a guy comes in with flowers, black roses. You know, roses painted black. And I thought, wow, that, you know. So actually it was while we were getting ready to talk to the team, so I didn't really have a chance to ask the man who brought them or who bought them or whatever. So I put him in the middle of the floor, you know, based on the story I had heard, and we gave the pep talk, and I read the card. It said, "You thought the first time was bad, wait till today." So I remember looking at Coach Martinez saying, you know, like this, and he said, well, I knew it wasn't me. So anyway, it worked. We scored on the first play, and we just beat the heck out of them that day. And then I found out later it was my sister-in-law who had remembered the story.